Good day everyone, I'm Patricia Taborada and today I'm going to be discussing about what is Sikolohiyang Pilipino or the Filipino psychology along with Bohos and Mojica. Before we will proceed, let us know first the objectives of learning this topic. First is explain the importance of language and cultural orientation to the Filipino psychology. Second is learn about brief history and how Filipino psychology rises. What is Filipino psychology or what is Sikolohiyang Pilipino? It refers to the psychology born out of the experience, thoughts, and orientation of the Filipinos. Sikolohiyang Pilipino is a kind of psychology that focuses on the embedded, meaning to say, fixed or nakasanayan na natin ng mga experiences, ideas, cultural orientation ng mga Pilipino. Yung basis naman sa pag-aaral ng PhilPsych is the use of Filipino culture and language. Conceived in 1975 by Virgilio Enriquez, which is the father of Sikolohiyang Pilipino. Virgilio initiated to create Filipino psychology because he observed that the intellectuals or the scholars here in the Philippines are not satisfied to the Western-oriented take on psychology since it is where they get basis on, or the psychology here in the Philippines has great influence to Western studies. So with that, he wanted to pursue this because Western orientation is kind of or really has its difference and does not fit with the Filipino culture and behavior. For example, Western orientation focuses more on themselves or the individualism, and the Filipino orientation or the Filipino people enjoys gathering, or they most likely to be with other people. They like to socialize. And Western people's opinion is on point rather than the Filipino people who discusses their opinion, especially when it's different from each other. And Western orientation most likely to be on time than Filipino orientation, which is in time. For example, the call time is 9 o'clock in the morning, and then people will most likely arrive at 9:30 or 9:45 or something. Sometimes nga 10 a.m. na talaga. And yan yung tinatawag nila na Filipino time, or nabansagan talaga na ang mga Pilipino ay parang season. So next is Western orientation takes meal once a day, or at least one good meal a day. They're satisfied with that, rather than the Filipino orientation or the Filipino people who really wants to eat 3 times a day. Their day is not complete talaga without 3 good meals, or sometimes not 4 or 5. It depends on the person. Though Filipino has distinct Asian background with strong Western traditions, we are different through our orientations talaga. Next is psychology in the Philippines was not productive due to language barrier. It's because most of the psychological literature from Western history was only available in English, reason why many Filipino researchers is na-inspired sa works ni Virgilio, and they started to do research with the concept of Western research methods in psychology and broaden the view of cross-cultural psychology. What is cross-cultural psychology? It is a scientific study that focuses on the similarities and differences in behavior of individuals that developed in different cultures. So nag-came up sila na to assess how language and cultural orientation affects the behavior and thought of human being. Well, based on my research, language plays a significant role in human behavior and how it shapes people's culture. That's why they considered language as cultural, social, and psychological phenomenon, since even small differences in language use, it can accord or it can affect with biased beliefs. So if you're speaking a language, it means that you are assuming a culture. For example, if you want to know another culture because you want to know their principles or their orientation, basically, you're also trying to know their language. So that's just a short overview sa relationship ng language at saka culture, since hindi naman ito ang focus ng topic na ito. So we're gonna proceed to the next bullet, which is Sikolohiyang Pilipino examines the connections between self-perception, consciousness, culture, and political climate in the Filipino context. So, ang Sikolohiyang Pilipino looks into the connection of how a person assess themselves when it comes to how they act and react towards the opinions of political society at a particular time. So, the political climate is in Filipino psychology is gina-examine niya yung connection nito sa each other of how can it affect the person's behavior and life. Reason why it can contribute to the development of our own identity and national consciousness. And let's proceed to the next slide, which will be presented by Erica Bojos.
Magandang araw po sa inyong lahat. Before po I proceed in my discussion po, first and foremost, ipagpaumanhin niyo po kung may maririnig po kayong ingay sa background ko. Kasi ito na po yung parte ng aming lugar na hindi gaanong maingay. So yun po, pagpaumanhin niyo po. So yun, the approach. Filipino psychology o Sikolohiyang Pilipino refers to indigenization from within. Yes po, this topic is already discussed sa previous reporters natin. But let me tell you po guys na this topic is also connected in our report, which is Sikolohiyang Pilipino. So yun po. It is a process where the knowledge and methods related to psychology are derived from the local culture. So this process formalizes the knowledge base on the local culture at its source. So it means looking for the indigenous psychology from within the culture itself, and not just clothing a foreign body with a local dress, of course. So, the strategy for discovering Sikolohiyang Pilipino, it is based on assessing historical and socio-cultural realities, understanding the local language, unraveling Filipino characteristics. So, it also focuses on the personality characteristics and traits of us Filipinos, and explaining them through the eyes of the native Filipino. So in short, psychology, it is appropriate and significant to us Filipinos. So and also from the experiences of the indigenous people, theoretical framework and methods are developed. So next is we have indigenization. This is the process by which indigenous ways of knowing, being, doing, and relating are incorporated into educational, organizational, cultural, and social structures. So the fact of making something more native, transformation of some service, idea, to suit a local culture, especially through the use of more indigenous people in administration, employment, and etc. So, example na lang, Christianity. Christianization was a form of indigenization by converting areas and groups to follow Christianity. So, yon. And we have also the cultural revalidation, the transformation of service, ideas, and concept to suit a local culture. So, according to Enriquez, he suggested he said that the word indigenization is erroneous, because how can you indigenize something which is already indigenous? So, cultural revalidation is a better term for it, according to Ginoong Enriquez. And then next is we have...
Good day everyone, my name is Gil Kirsten Mojica and this is my report. The rise of Sikolohiyang Pilipino. From the pre-Sikolohiyang Pilipino, it is the subsequent period reflects a paradigm shift away from a westernized focus on behaviorism and the experimental method towards an indigenous understanding of the Filipino. So according to Likuanan of 1985, the 1970s saw an active questioning of the relevance of the Western theory and concept, an increased interest in larger social issues, in the dynamics of Filipino communities, in the intricacies of Filipino psyche, in the use of Filipino as the language of research. This resulted in a body of knowledge which includes indigenous concepts and methods. In short, a psychology which appropriate and significant to Filipinos. Sa halip na sumunod sa mga metodolihiyang itinanim at ipinataw ng Western psychology, sinuri ang pagbuo ng Filipino-centric narrative na isinasaalang-alang ang impluwensya ng socio-political variables, integration ng wika at kultural na pagkakaiba. For example, the political climate of 1970s under the Marcos administration was characterized by backlash, upheaval, and resistance from across all class lines, which in turn ignited a critical reevaluation of identity and consideration of a national consciousness. The principal emphasis of Sikolohiyang Pilipino is to foster national identity and consciousness, social involvement, and psychology of language and culture. So placing the Filipino experience and narrative at the forefront of its guiding principles, and retaining the native translation, Virgilio Enriquez's creation of Sikolohiyang Pilipino was a stepping stone towards a conscious agency and resistance to many of colonization. That's all. Thank you.